Hello everybody and welcome back to Creation Myths. Today we are going to do another quick and easy way to beat a common creationist talking point. And we are once again going to talk about mitochondrial DNA and the creationist calculations that purport to show the mitochondrial most recent common ancestor, so-called mitochondrial Eve, lived just 6,000 years ago. Now, we have already covered this argument in this series twice. First, we talked about how creationists ignore Neanderthal DNA even when they accept that those sequences are valid, and how those sequences make the creationist timeline impossible because they have to cram too many mutations into too little time. Then, we talked about how, in order to achieve the extremely fast mutation rate they require, creationists include somatic mutations, mutations outside the germline that can never be passed on to offspring and so are irrelevant to the substitution rate, the rate at which mutations accumulate in populations. Today, we are going to add a third thing that completely destroys this creationist argument, and it's something really simple and familiar to everybody. It's natural selection. This is great because, with the exception of the Institute for Creation Research weirdos who are all in on continuous environmental tracking, creationists do accept that natural selection occurs and, importantly, that it reduces diversity in populations, which is to say, it reduces the rate at which mutations achieve fixation. So here's why this thing is a killer argument for the young Earth mitochondrial Eve claims. Creationists can only make their math work if the mutation rate, the rate at which mutations occur, equals the substitution rate, the rate at which mutations build up in populations over time by achieving fixation, which is to say every member of a population has a specific mutation. Those two numbers can only be the same, the mutation rate and the substitution rate can only be the same if there is zero natural selection operating, which is obviously unrealistic, particularly for something as important as mitochondria. But this matters because when you're calculating your time to most recent common ancestor, you have to use the substitution rate. Now, in case you're thinking, Dan, that's ridiculous, nobody would actually make that claim. Even creationists would never base their argument on such an unserious position. Let me tell you, they absolutely will. Here's Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson, Harvard PhD, currently working at Answers in Genesis, whose work on this exact topic is what basically every other creationist cites when they make this argument. Here's Dr. Jeanson saying directly to me that this is what he is doing. Check it out.
And I'm treating the mutation rate as a substitution rate, that this rate is consistent.
Thank you. To understand why this isn't just wrong, but laughably wrong, we have to look at the mitochondrial genome. So here it is. See that little gray and green part at the top? That's the control region, the only part that doesn't contain any genes. The three green parts in there are actually called the hypervariable regions because they're, hypervariable. That's where you find a lot of the variation in the mitochondrial DNA, while the rest of it has very little variation. It's extremely consistent. A huge percentage, over half, is actually completely invariant across all of humans. And that's because all of the rest is genes, either protein coding or RNA genes, and they're really important genes. Genes involved in cellular respiration. If they're broken, it's a big problem. So what we see are a lot of mutations accumulating in the hypervariable regions and very few mutations accumulating in the rest of the mitochondrial genome. What Jeanson and other creationists want to do is take the substitution rate in the hypervariable regions and extrapolate that across the entire mitochondrial genome. They don't hide it. This is like exactly what they do. But you can't do that because the rest of the genome is highly constrained. It experiences strong, purifying selection. That's a type of natural selection that removes new mutations. Because if a mutation breaks any of those genes, that mitochondrion that experiences that mutation probably isn't going to survive. So those mutations aren't going to achieve fixation within the population. This isn't a hypothetical problem for creationists. This isn't just some theoretical thing we're saying it should work like this. The difference in substitution rates across the different regions of the mitochondrial DNA has been directly documented. Here's a table from a 2009 paper. The column with the highlighting is substitution rates for different regions of the mitochondrial genome. The two rows in yellow are two of the hypervariable regions, and they have directly measured substitution rates of some number, the number doesn't actually matter, times 10 to the negative 7th power. And that's measured in substitutions per site per year. Now below that, the rows highlighted in blue are regions in the genes, either protein coding or RNA genes, that are critical for mitochondria function. Those substitution rates are some number times 10 to the negative 9th power, 2 orders of magnitude slower. Why the difference? Natural selection. Natural selection removes mutations that occur in the mitochondrial genes. That slows the substitution rate relative to the mutation rate, which means...
And I'm treating the mutation rate as a substitution rate.
Indefensible. And it means that all the creationist calculations on this are wrong. The real time to most recent common ancestor for mitochondrial DNA is about 100 to 200,000 years in the past, not 6,000, because you can only get to 6,000 years if you pretend there's no natural selection operating on the mitochondrial genome. That's what you need to assume to have the mutation rate equal the substitution rate, and that's not a serious argument. So when you encounter creationists making this claim about how observed mutation rates prove a recent mitochondrial eve, you now have a third reason they're wrong. Natural selection slows down the rate of mutation accumulation, so all those young Earth calculations, useless. Thank you all for watching. Please remember to hit like before you leave, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, share this video, see what your young Earth creationist friends think. If you want immediate access to pre-recorded videos like this, consider becoming a channel member, and as always, don't get fooled.